The House will come to order. Members, the only thing between you and your weekend is a few short calendar bills. Calendar for the day. The first bill on the House calendar for today is Senate File 100. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 100, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Zerwas, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Mr. Speaker, this bill relates to providing a last chance. The Last Chance Act is for people that have a terminal condition, a terminal illness, and diagnosis to work in connection with their care team and their physician to try an experimental drug or procedure, not yet through the entire FDA process. It would kick in after the first phase of the FDA process that proves that the drug is not toxic, and once it passes that toxicity test, it would be available. The bill contains no mandates. It doesn't mandate a doctor to offer the treatment. It doesn't mandate an insurance company to pay for the treatment. And the bill really is about hope and providing Minnesotans their last chance at hope. And with that, members, vote green.
Further discussion on Senate File 100. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 100.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Representative Zerwas.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'll be brief here. I just wanted to tell the body a little bit. When this bill came to me as an option, as a policy that has been moving across the country, it was first passed in Arizona by a voter referendum. It's in effect in over a dozen states currently. The idea that someone that has a terminal diagnosis ought to get a last shot to try something that maybe isn't all the way through the experimental process. And for me, I was 15 years old when I was told that I wasn't going to get the heart transplant I had waited for the last 2 years, and that the last 6 months of being in the hospital trying different procedures was really for nothing. And I was told, go home, you have a few months left to live. You need to spend that time with your friends and with your family. And so I went home. My big decisions that summer was if my Uncle Bob was going to read my eulogy or if my best friend Ryan was going to read my eulogy. I asked my dad if he thought it would be appropriate if the Elk River Honor Guard came to my funeral. I picked out the music, I picked out the readings, and I was ready to die. A month and a half later, my original pediatric cardiologist and my cardiac surgeon, Dr. Nikoloff, came to my family and said, come down for another appointment. We want to visit. And they said, we want to try one last thing. It's never been done for your condition before. It's been tried a few times in South America for enlarged hearts, but we want to go in. We want to take out the entire right side of your heart, and we want to replace that with the sac, the pericardium that goes around a cow's heart. I laughed at him. I said, that's never gonna work. And Dr. Nikoloff said, you know what? It might work, and I think we should try. And he said, and even if it doesn't, Nick, we're gonna learn so much just by trying that surgery that the next 15-year-old little boy I don't think we're going to save you, but I think we're going to save the next one. And so, members, that was my right to try. We got that right, and we're able to give it a shot. I fully believe life is worth fighting for, and government has no role in getting in the way of us to pursue life. With that, members, I ask for your green vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I certainly rise in support, and since Representative Zerwas and I have our own URL on a web page that's called Bromance, I'm pretty glad he's here, and I think that when I look back, and if my kids had this same situation, or anybody in this room, we all want that right to try, because how many days and how many people come into this building and say, if I just had one more day with my kid, if I just had one more day. And I know Nick's mom, or Representative Zerwas's mom and dad are here. I'm glad to see them in the building so that we can all celebrate today by putting a lot of green votes up on the board for this bill. Please vote green.
Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I also urge a green vote on this bill. I do think that when it comes down to it, people should have the right to control their own destiny. And I think that actually we could talk about that in a lot of contexts, but this is certainly one in which we, I think, could all agree that allowing people to have that last chance and take that last risk if they so choose is a really important thing to do. So members, please vote green.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 123 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Representative Zerwas, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Mr. Speaker and members, I'm honored today to have probably the two biggest reasons why I'm still here. In the 10 open heart surgeries I've had and the 6 months that I spent when I was waiting for the heart transplant, every time my mom never left my hospital room for 6 months. She lived at the hospital, and my dad was there every day before and after work. And so I apologize for doing this in advance, but I just have to recognize I think the best parents in the entire state of Minnesota, my parents Tom and Chris Zerwas.
The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1358. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1358, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to local government.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. There's going to be an amendment on this bill this morning, and it just adds 7 additional words to make everybody in the chamber give something to everyone in the chamber to vote for on this bill. I was approached to asked to help modify the municipal contracting code, specifically the energy efficient section, which enumerates 8 different areas that municipalities, which could be defined as schools in this section, counties, cities, and other government agencies, to encourage energy efficiency in lighting, rehab of facilities, weatherization, and so forth. And what we're going to add to, or propose, I should say, to add to this section of statute is to deal with water metering devices. If you're a municipality, you sell municipal water, you have meters that are installed in homes that calculate the amount of water that's used. What we did in the Senate on this bill in committee was amend that to include some language that adds of water measurement and reduce energy use. And so one sentence addition to statute, so instead of amending that, I'm just going to be doing a delete all. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take up the A15 amendment when it's appropriate.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Driscoll moves to amend House File Number 1358, delete everything after the enacting clause and insert. The amendment is coded A15-0653.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll, to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, as I said, this now what we'll see in the entire substitution if we adopt the amendment, it will say number 9, water metering devices that increase efficiency and accuracy, and those are for folks who want to save money on water, and water measurement and reduce energy for those on a conservation measure. And that's why I say there's now something in this bill for both. And so members, I encourage a green vote to amend House File 1358. Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussion on the amendment? The member from Hennepin, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Nelson, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My voice changed there for a second. Anyway, the amendment's a good amendment. It's to put the bill in the order so that we're basically pre-conferencing it with what the Senate language is, and it'll make it easier going forward. So it's a good amendment to a good bill.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, all those in favor of adopting the O'Driscoll amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 1358, as amended.
Third reading. Any further discussion to House File 1358 as amended? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. Lencheski votes aye. There being 124 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1770. The clerk will report the bill.
House File Number 1770, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to courts.
The member from Osseo, Representative Smith, to explain your bill.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Members, House File 1770 is a bill that extends jurisdiction for counties to pursue claims in their own backyard for non-residents. This is a local government-friendly bill. This is non-controversial, this is supported by the State Bar, and this has bipartisan support. This bill allows government to increase efficiencies and to decrease costs This is a good bill that allows governments to pursue freedom for how they want to pursue these claims. I ask for a green vote. Thank you.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Pinto moves to amend House File Number 1770, the first engrossment, and the amendment is coded A4.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto, to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the A4 amendment, the amendment before you, contains some protections that were requested by legal aid to give notice for defendants to make sure that they're aware of this, and also to exclude human services payments. This is the final section of this language. So again, legal aid requested this. They worked with the bill author, Representative Smith. I worked with them as well. And I did run both the amendment and the bill past the county that I represent, Ramsey County, and they're supportive of this as well. And so, members, I'd request that you support this amendment.
Discussion on the Pinto amendment. Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. And Mr. Speaker, Representative Pinto, all I can say is thank you. Thank you for helping clean up this bill. As I looked at it, it has serious, serious, serious problems, and you, Representative Pinto, have offered an amendment that I think absolutely brings this bill in line with where it should be, and you, Representative Smith, should be so grateful that you have the bipartisan support of Representative Pinto. I wholeheartedly support this. Members, vote green. Vote green and get a good bill through the House floor.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of the Pinto amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 1770, as amended.
Third reading. Further discussion to House File 1770 as amended. Representative Smith.
Mr. Speaker, members. I yield to Representative Pinto. Thank you.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, now that the bill has been cleaned up, and I appreciate, Representative Kresha, your words, and now that it has been, members, I'd request a green vote on this bill. It's a good bill.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I'd like to thank my co-author, Representative Pinto, for all the hard work, and Representative Kresha's comments about this. This is the second opportunity this week for us to vote for liberty and freedom. I urge a green vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk will close the roll. There being 124 ayes and 1 nay, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. Members, I just checked the weather report. It will be 81 degrees tomorrow. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 546. The clerk will report the bill.
House File Number 546, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to state government.
The member from Washington, Representative Dettmer, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members. 80 degrees tomorrow. All right, here we go. House File 546, a bill allows the counties to release military discharge records to other counties for the purpose of building a private index with the goal of making it easier for families to locate the DD-214, DD-215 records. And this was brought to me by the Department of Military Affairs and also the Department of Veterans Affairs Services. So I'm open for any questions, but I ask you for a green vote. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 546.
Third reading. Any further discussion on the bill? The member from Anoka, Representative Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a good bill, and I encourage everyone to vote green.
Any further discussion? Representative Dettmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Newton, vote green. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 125 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for today is Senate File 1455. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1455, number 5 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to veterans.
The member from Anoka, Representative Newton, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a bill that has to do with the guardianship of veterans' estates. It's an agency bill. It was overlooked in the unsession work that we did last session. It has not been used since 2006, and it's time to get rid of it. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 1455.
Third reading. Any further discussion on Senate File 1455? Representative Dettmer.
Again, thank you, Representative Newton, for bringing this to the House floor. Thank you. It's a good bill. Vote green.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 125 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, the last bill on the calendar for today is House File 1003. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1003, number 7 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to local government.
The member from Anoka, Representative Laine, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My fire chief in Columbia Heights, Gary Gorman, requested this change in the law to allow fire and police departments to donate equipment that's no longer serviceable to them and has minimal or no resale value. I'm going to explain this a little to you all so that you know what your city departments might ask of you after this. In general, city departments are supposed to try to return money to the city when they dispose of equipment. There are times when little to no return is possible, for instance, if no one bids on it. Yet there is no clarity in state statute about whether a municipality can donate surplus equipment to nonprofits. Some think this lack of direct permission doesn't apply to items that have no resale value, but most cities just don't go there. Yes, they do have items that are still usable, but outdated or don't meet current standards that they just hate to junk. This bill solves that problem. This could be as simple as being able to give old cell phones to a domestic abuse shelter. But it could also be equipment to a third world country that could be assisted in establishing, for instance, a fire service. An old fire hose, no longer up to standards here, could have the brass ends cut off and sold for scrap, or the still serviceable hose could go to a country in, say, West Africa. Another example, the firefighter suits here, their turnout gear, have a serviceable lifetime of 5 to 10 years, but after our fire departments have retired them, they may still provide more protection for a firefighter in Liberia than street clothes, no protective clothing. The fire chief in Brooklyn Park, Ken Prilliman, has personally done work in setting up fire services overseas. Another example is a defibrillator. The departments have these ready for use, but after the warranted lifetime of 10 years, even though they may not have been used at all, they have no resale value, and so would need to be junked. but they could go to a third world country and potentially save a life. We want our equipment safe for our fire and police personnel. In fact, we demand it with industry safety regulations. This bill lets us do that and lets us give surplus equipment to a nonprofit that can still make use of it. There is a requirement in the bill that the municipality needs to adopt a policy on how it will determine what equipment is eligible for donation and how it will determine which nonprofit may receive donations. And they need to disclose what the surplus equipment is basically as is. It may be defective and not relied upon for safety. With that, the Minnesota Association for Justice is not opposed. This is a good bill, members, that is bipartisanly loved in the committee process, and so I ask for your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 1003.
Third reading. The member from Carver, Representative Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members and Mr. Speaker and Representative Laine, thank you very much for carrying this bill. I think this is a great idea, long overdue. I appreciate it. I would urge everyone to vote green. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Clark, for bringing Laine for bringing this bill. Yes, I knew I got it wrong. I teased her yesterday in our caucus when she said Brooklyn Center instead of Brooklyn Park. It was my fire chief that brought the bill forward, and they've been hoping to do this. So it's a good bill. Vote green.
Representative Knobloch.
Would Representative Laine yield?
She will yield. Representative Knobloch.
Representative Laine, I'm looking at the bill, page 1, line 11. And I'm wondering, is there a word or two missing in here? Because as I read it, it seems to almost seem like maybe there ought to be a few words after the statute that's cited.
Representative Laine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that this is 23 other times in statute exactly like this.
Representative Knobloch.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I guess as it reads, it says any tort claim against a municipality resulting from the use of surplus equipment donated by the municipality to a nonprofit under Section 471. I don't know if it should say something like is released from liability or is not valid or something. I guess that was just the question that I have. It just seems a little unclear to me. I don't know if there's something in that section that specifies it. Anyway, I guess I'm not on any of the committees that have seen it. I just, in looking at it, wondered about it, and I guess I'd be open to any thoughts you might have.
Representative Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Knobloch, I have the language in front of me, and I understand the point you're making. Members, I would suggest that we pass Representative Laine's bill today, and we have the revisers take a look at this, and if that is a correction that needs to be fixed here, if, as Representative Laine says, it needs to be fixed other places in statute, then we could do that in the end of session revisers bill and take care of it in all of those places. I'd hate to see this get sidetracked today. I think it is a good bill and well-intentioned, and if it is wrong here, it's wrong everywhere, and let's just fix it for the good of every place in statute where we have that same language. Thank you.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Knobloch, I think the section that's referred to, and I'm just looking at this just on the fly here, but 466.03, the section referred to, has a list of claims that another section, 466.02, does not apply to. So there's a whole list of subdivisions that are written that same way. Any claim that does X, any claim that does Y, etc. One of those is subdivision 25, any claim that applies here. So it appears, just looking at this, that this is drafted correctly, though I understand Representative Knobloch's point.
Any further discussion? Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wondering if Representative Laine would yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Laine, I very much appreciate the intent of the bill. The only concern I have is that we have a very clear understanding in statute of what constitutes the time at which these supplies are no longer have a market value or no longer usable. On line 1.22 of the bill, it says no longer needed by the local government because it does not meet industry standards. And I'm wondering if that's too broad of a term, industry standards, or maybe you can give me more understanding of what that means and how that would be implemented by the local government to make certain that local governments aren't simply dumping off these materials so that they can move up to the next greatest generation or next generation of equipment. And it looks like Representative Laine suggests, Mr. Speaker, that maybe Representative Schoen should yield to the question instead.
He will yield. Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, a lot of that language comes, and I think Representative Howe could attest to this from the National Fire Protection Association, where they say there's a timeline on things. Bullet-resistant vest has an expiration date from the manufacturer. There are so many different things that are involved with that usefulness. Either a vehicle just times out, typically, whatever changes, but fire hose has a certain date. It gets rated, it's tested, and then after a certain amount of time, it's just time to rotate it out. But those things come from the industry and also from the groups that the government even puts in place to monitor those and say that this is about the timeline that it matters. So it's not set in state statute, but it's set in other guideline areas.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Schoen. And again, I do appreciate the intent of the bill. I think that term is still kind of broad. I don't know if I'm going to vote for the bill or not. I'm sure we're going to vote here quickly. But my fear is that we don't have enough specificity in that definition there. And, you know, maybe we could actually include in statute, or should this bill pass, and it looks like it's going to pass, we may want to consider providing the same type of specificity that Representative Schoen talked about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Drazkowski, I think we intentionally want to leave it broad so that we can leave it up to the different industry groups, whether it's police or fire, to let their national or international standards apply. And I think that's the way it's written for this bill and in statute, so that we can intentionally do that. So we might have standards in this country where bulletproof vests or a fire hose, we don't consider that. With the water pressure we have and the uses we have, there are other parts of the world where it might have a long service life left ahead of it, where they don't have the same kind of either water pressure or standards. And I think I would support leaving it intentionally vague.
Representative Nash.
Mr. Speaker, members, Representative Laine, I do support your bill. As a former mayor, we would plug into our CIP plan the retirement of various pieces of equipment. And I respect Representative Drazkowski's questions because I think he's watching out for the taxpayer. But there are truly times, members, that we have to take things that still have a lot of shelf life on them, a lot of usability, and throw them away because based on our own codes, NFPA codes for turnout gear or other things like fire hoses, we have to throw them away because they have a shelf life here in the United States. But there are other organizations around the world that would benefit from these things, and I think that this is a good way to share in the things that we've got that would normally get thrown away in the dumpster here, and I support this bill.
Representative Considine.
I'm going to rise to support the bill, primarily because Mankato's already been doing this, and I'd like to make sure they're within the law. We've been shipping stuff down to Nicaragua with a nonprofit, and Representative Drazkowski, it's all stuff that was deemed unusable by our fire department, that it was, you know, and that there was almost no resale value for it all, too. It was stuff that, helmets that were no longer adequate, coats that were no longer adequate, but as that Representative Laine said, it's certainly a lot better than what they had. So I would urge a green vote. Thank you.
Members, I realize I had an oversight earlier. I forgot to let you know that on Sunday it will be 75 degrees. Representative Laine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say that the cities are doing due diligence. These are your city councils, they're city people. They don't want to spend any more money than they have to, so they're not going to get rid of these things if they have any value. This is the surplus equipment that they do not have value for, and it does not meet industry standards.
Representative Knobloch.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House. In looking at the statute, I see where Representative Pinto is saying that this really is part of a list. However, as I look at the statute further, I think it could use a little bit of clarification the way it's written too. And I guess I'm planning on supporting the bill, but I guess I just encourage you, Representative Laine, to maybe talk to your Senate author and see if there's a little bit of technical correction language that could be added to perhaps clear it up a little bit, because maybe not your bill, but the statute itself seems to me to be a little unclear. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill.
Mr. Speaker, Runbeck votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 123 ayes and 2 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Without objection, members will revert to messages from the Senate. Hearing no objection, messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments the concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House file number 846, an act relating to state government, appropriating money for environment and natural resources. And the message is signed Joanne M. Zoff, Secretary of the Senate. McNamara moved that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House file number 846, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee member of 5 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
The member from Dakota, Representative McNamara, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a little confused. See, now we're all working bipartisanly. If I just move to concur, then that would end this bill. Would that be right? And is, Mr. Speaker, isn't that a higher motion to concur?
Unfortunately, your motion to refuse to concur is a higher motion, Representative McNamara. So your 2 motions would be in conflict with each other, and this one is a higher motion.
So, Mr. Speaker, if we wanted to enjoy the weekend at this point in time, the easiest thing would be to refuse to concur and get out of here.
I think so.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that we go to conference and resolve the differences. I think we can convince the Senate that we've got a better bill. And with that, members, I would ask for a strong vote to refuse to concur.
Any discussion on the McNamara motion to refuse to concur to the Senate language and appoint a conference committee? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the McNamara motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Pepin for the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Tuesday, May 5th, 2015, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills. Senate file numbers 1816, 417, 997, 1218, House file number 1193, Senate file number 1499 and 1741, and House file numbers 1556 and 450.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House file number 846. McNamara, Hamilton, Hackbarth, Fabian, and Dill.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Announcements. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, from 11:30 to 1:30 today, the St. Paul Saints want to welcome you to view the new CHS field in Lowertown, St. Paul. And you can take the green line down there from right out here by the Capitol. It reaches the end down at Union Depot rather, and you can walk 2 blocks over to the Broadway entrance. So they'd love to entertain you. Thank you very much for your help and helping to make this CHS field a possibility. The St. Paul Saints would like to welcome you today.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my announcement today is to all members and staff. We also want to welcome our Senate colleagues as well. Next Tuesday, in front of the Capitol building here, we are going to be hosting free turkey burgers in honor of our turkey industry. Out in front, we've got a caterer coming out from West Central Minnesota. It'll be hosted and paid for by the rural caucuses of both the Senate and the House. We're very proud to invite everybody to come out for a free turkey burger. Invite your staff, your LAs, construction workers. We have 500 burgers to give away. When they're gone, and we just want to make sure that everybody's invited. So next Tuesday, and free water and lemonade is available as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Time frame, I'm sorry, is 11:30 a.m. to 1 or until the burgers are gone. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I move when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m., Monday, May 4th, 2015.
Representative Pepin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m., Monday, May 4th, 2015. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Representative Pepin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Pepin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails, and the House stands adjourned until 3:30 p.m., Monday, May 4th, 2015. Have a good weekend, members.